the Yakuza, Sicilian Mafia, and Chinese Triads codes of silence and honor. Hello and welcome back to Driftwood Histories. Tonight, our journey takes a different path. We leave the hallowed halls of universities and the esoteric temples of philosophers behind. We drift into a darker, more dangerous current of history. A world where brotherhood is bound not by philosophical ideals, but by blood and silence. A world where rituals are not about enlightenment, but about loyalty, and where power is not debated in parliaments, but enforced in the shadows of the street. We are stepping into the world of criminal secret societies. These are not just gangs or mobs. They are intricate organizations with ancient roots, complex codes of conduct, and a sense of identity so powerful that members will often die before they betray it. They are families, brotherhoods, and empires built on the other side of the law. So, find your comfortable place. Let the world outside fade into a quiet hum. Close your eyes, and allow my voice to be your guide as we navigate the hidden histories of three of the most feared, mythologized, and enduring criminal fraternities on Earth. The tattooed and stoic Yakuza of Japan, the honor-bound and formidable Sicilian Mafia, and the ancient, sprawling network of the Chinese Triads. Our story begins not with a gunshot, but with a roll of the dice in the gambling dens of feudal Japan. In the collective imagination of the West, the Yakuza are often reduced to a simple cinematic caricature. Japanese gangsters in sharp, tailored suits, with missing fingers, sunglasses that hide more than they reveal, and elaborate, full-body tattoos that swirl with dragons and demons. And while those images hold a kernel of truth, they are but a surface reflection, a single ripple on a deep and ancient ocean. To truly understand the Yakuza, we must drift back in time, into a world of feudal lords, masterless samurai, and social outcasts. A world where honor was a currency more valuable than gold, and where a secret society was forged not in the pursuit of simple greed, but from a complex tapestry of duty, rebellion, and a uniquely Japanese form of defiant pride. The very name, Yakuza, is a clue to their origins, a self-deprecating nod to their place on the fringes of society. It comes from a losing hand in a traditional Japanese card game called Oichokabo, a game similar to Baccarat. The name is derived from the phonetic sounds of the numbers 8, 9, and 3, ya, ku, sa. Together, they add up to 20, which in the game is a worthless hand. To call oneself Yakuza, therefore, was to embrace the identity of a loser, a misfit, a good-for-nothing, who lived outside the rigid, unforgiving structures of mainstream Japanese society. It was a badge of dishonor, worn with a stoic and unwavering sense of purpose. The historical roots of the Yakuza are traditionally traced back to two distinct groups of social outcasts who emerged during the long peace of the Edo period, which lasted from the early 17th to the mid-19th century. The first of these groups were the takiya, or itinerant peddlers. These were men who traveled from town to town, setting up stalls at festivals and markets. They often sold shoddy, fraudulent, or stolen goods. To protect their illicit trade from rivals and to manage their own internal disputes, they formed tight-knit brotherhoods. These groups developed strict hierarchies, initiation rites, and a shared code of conduct. They were, in essence, Japan's earliest form of organized crime, built on the margins of commerce and community life. The second, and perhaps more influential ancestor group were the bakudo, or gamblers. These men ran illegal gambling dens in abandoned temples and forgotten back alleys across Japan. They engaged in loan sharking and lived by their wits, their nerve, and the roll of the dice. It is from the bakudo that many of the Yakuza's most iconic and visceral traditions are said to have come, including their elaborate, full-body tattoos and the grim ritual of Yubitsumeath act of amputating one's own finger as a form of apology or atonement. But there is another, more mythic and romantic origin story, one that the Yakuza themselves prefer. Many of the great Yakuza families, or kumi, trace their spiritual lineage back to the Hatamoto Yako or Makiyako of the 17th century. These were groups of masterless samurai or ronin. After the long and bloody period of civil war, known as the Sengoku period, finally ended, the Tokugawa shogunate established a lasting peace. This peace, however, left thousands of samurai warriors unemployed, disenfranchised, and adrift. Some of these proud, displaced warriors, according to the legend, formed secret brotherhoods to protect the common people, the farmers and townspeople, from the abuses of other, more thuggish and arrogant samurai who still roamed the land. They saw themselves as noble outlaws, the Robin Hoods of feudal Japan, upholding a truer form of justice than the state could provide. Whether this is historical fact or a carefully constructed, self-serving myth, it is absolutely central to the Yakuza's complex self-image. They do not see themselves merely as criminals or gangsters. They see themselves as the inheritors of the samurai code of Bushido. They view their world through the lens of Jinji, justice and duty, Giri, a profound sense of obligation to one's community and superiors, and a stoic sense of honor that demands loyalty above all else. This perception of themselves as a chivalrous organization is what separates them, in their own minds, from common thugs. The structure of a Yakuza family is a rigid, deeply paternalistic pyramid. At the very top is the Oyabun, which translates literally to father status or father figure. He is the patriarch, the boss, the absolute authority. His followers are the Kobun or child figures. The relationship between them is not one of employment. It is a sacred, quasi-familial bond that is meant to be stronger than blood. To join a Yakuza family, a new recruit must undergo a formal and solemn initiation ceremony, the Sakazuka Goto. In this ritual, the recruit and the Oyabun sit facing each other, surrounded by other high-ranking members. A cup is filled with sake, mixed with salt and fish scales to symbolize purity and shared experience. The Oyabun drinks from the cup, then passes it to the recruit. By drinking from the same cup, the new member symbolically severs his ties with his biological family and swears an oath of absolute, lifelong fealty to his new Yakuza family. He has now become a made man. He is no longer an individual. He is a part of a larger, living entity. This loyalty is everything. A betrayal of the family is the ultimate, unforgivable sin. And when a member fails in his duty or brings shame upon the Oyabun, he must atone in a way that is both visceral and permanent. This is the origin of the ritual of yubitsum, or finger shortening. The offending member, to demonstrate the depth of his remorse, will take a small, sharp knife, a tanto, and place it on a clean cloth. He will then cleanly sever the top joint of his own left little finger. He then wraps the severed digit in the cloth and presents it to his boss as a formal apology. If he offends again, the next joint of the same finger, or the top of his ring finger, goes next. This grisly tradition had a practical purpose in the age of the samurai. A swordsman with a shortened finger could not grip his katana as tightly, making him weaker in a fight and more dependent on his comrades for protection. In the modern era, it serves as a powerful visual symbol of sacrifice and unwavering loyalty. A man with a missing finger is a man who has made a mistake and paid for it. The most striking visual element of the Yakuza, and the one that has most captivated the Western imagination, is the full-body tattoo or irezumi. These are not small, discrete images chosen from a parlor wall. They are vast, intricate, and deeply personal masterpieces that can cover the entire body, from the base of the neck to the wrists and ankles, like a secret suit of armor worn beneath a business suit. The process of receiving an irezumi is an ordeal of endurance, a testament to the member's commitment. It is traditionally done by hand, using non-electric tulsa bundle of needles tied to a long bamboo handle. This ancient method, called tebari, is incredibly painful and slow. A full bodysuit can take hundreds, even thousands, of hours to complete over several years. The imagery is a living encyclopedia of Japanese folklore and symbolism. A dragon, coiling up the back, represents power, wisdom, and benevolence. A koi fish, struggling upstream, symbolizes strength, courage, and perseverance. A tiger represents protection against evil and disease. Samurai warriors, fierce deities, beautiful geishas, and scenes from ancient legends all swirl together in a vibrant, living tapestry. The tattoo is a story worn on the skin, a testament to the member's pain tolerance, his devotion to the Yakuza way, and his permanent, irreversible separation from mainstream Japanese society. For much of the 20th century, the Yakuza existed in a strange gray area of Japanese life. They were known criminals operating vast illegal enterprises in gambling, prostitution, loan sharking, and later, corporate extortion and real estate. Yet, they also saw themselves as guardians of traditional Japanese values in a rapidly modernizing world. They maintained a strict code against what they saw as dishonorable street crime, like mugging or petty theft, within their territories. They prided themselves on keeping order. This dual identity was never more apparent than in the chaotic aftermath of World War II. In a defeated and occupied Japan, the government was in disarray. Yakuza groups stepped into the power vacuum, controlling the black markets, organizing labor, and, in some cases, even helping to rebuild communities. This role as a necessary evil, a force for stability in times of chaos, earned them a degree of tacit acceptance from both the public and the authorities. This was starkly demonstrated after the devastating Kobe earthquake in 1995. The Yamaguchi-gumi, Japan's largest and most powerful Yakuza syndicate, mobilized faster and more effectively than the Japanese government. They organized relief efforts, distributing food, water, medicine, and supplies to the victims from their own headquarters. This act of public service, of Jinji, solidified their complex image as both predator and protector. Their influence seeped into the highest levels of Japanese society. For decades, they cultivated deep and symbiotic ties with the political right wing, particularly the Liberal Democratic Party, which ruled Japan for most of the post-war era. Yakuza provided security for politicians, acted as union busters, and served as a powerful, if illicit, bulwark against leftist and communist movements. They also mastered the art of corporate extortion through a practice called sakaya. They would buy small numbers of shares in major Japanese corporations, granting them access to shareholder meetings. They would then extort money from the company's executives by threatening to disrupt the meeting with embarrassing questions about corporate malfeasance. It was a brilliant and uniquely Japanese form of white-collar crime. But the old ways are dying. Since the passage of the anti-Boryokuden anti-gang laws in 1992, and subsequent, even stricter ordinances, the Japanese government has systematically dismantled the Yakuza's world. It is now illegal to associate with known members, to pay them protection money, or to conduct any business with them. This has crippled their traditional sources of income and forced them deeper into the shadows. Their membership has been in steep, continuous decline for over a decade. The younger generation of Japanese youth is less interested in the old, rigid codes of honor and lifelong loyalty. The intricate tattoos that once signified commitment and pride now make it impossible to get a loan, rent an apartment, or even enter a public bathhouse. The Yakuza are a fading, aging brotherhood. They are a living relic of a feudal past, struggling to survive in a modern, globalized, and less tolerant world. And yet, the myth, the aesthetic, the idea of the Yakuza endures. The image of the silent, tattooed outlaw, living by a forgotten code of duty and sacrifice, remains a powerful and poignant part of the Japanese psyche. They are a reminder that even in the most orderly and conformist of societies, there is always a shadow world, a place where different rules apply, and where a strange and brutal kind of honor can be found in the most unlikely of places. From the disciplined, tattooed outlaws of Japan, we now travel west, to a sun-drenched island in the Mediterranean, a place of ancient ruins, olive groves, and a secret society whose name has become synonymous with organized crime itself. A society bound by a sacred, and far more ruthless, oath of silence, the Sicilian Mafia. From the disciplined, tattooed outlaws of Japan, our journey now takes us west, across continents and cultures, to a sun-drenched, rugged island at the very heart of the Mediterranean. Sicily, a land of breathtaking beauty and profound sorrow, a place of ancient Greek temples, Norman cathedrals, and Baroque palaces. It is a land that has been conquered and colonized for millennia by the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, the Normans, the Spanish. This long and often brutal history of foreign rule bred in the Sicilian people a deep and powerful culture of suspicion. They learned not to trust the state, the police, or the courts. These institutions were seen as alien, occupying forces, there to extract wealth, not to provide justice. Instead, they relied on their own networks, their own sense of order, their own family. And in this fertile, sun-baked soil of distrust, a secret society took root and grew into a formidable, shadowy power. They did not call themselves the Mafia. That was a name given to them by outsiders. Among themselves, they called it Cosa Nostra, our thing. The word Mafia itself is shrouded in mystery, its origins debated by historians. Some believe it comes from an Arabic word, mayas, meaning aggressive boasting, or muafa, meaning place of refuge. Others suggest it was a patriotic acronym from the 13th century Sicilian revolt against French rule, Mort alla Francia, Italia Anela. Death to the French is Italy's cry, but its modern meaning emerged in the 19th century to describe the powerful, clan-based criminal organizations that came to dominate the Sicilian countryside. The Mafia was not born as a centralized criminal enterprise. It grew organically, like the island's ancient olive trees, from the unique social and economic conditions of feudal Sicily. For centuries, the island was controlled by absentee aristocratic landlords who lived in the grand palaces of Palermo or Naples. To manage their vast agricultural estates, or latifundia, they employed local strongmen, known as gabeloti. These gabeloti were the middlemen. They leased the land from the nobles and then sublet it to the peasants. They were responsible for collecting rent, enforcing contracts, and settling all disputes. They became the de facto government in a land where the official government was weak, corrupt, and utterly distant. They offered a form of protection for a price. A farmer who paid the pitsoth protection monito, the local boss would have his crops and livestock protected from thieves. A merchant would have his goods guarded on their journey to market. But this protection was a double-edged sword. To refuse it was to invite ruina, burned field, a stolen flock. The gabeloti and their network of armed men, the campieri, became the sole arbiters of life and death, of justice and revenge. They were respected and, above all, they were feared. They were uomini di onormen of honor. This system of patronage, extortion, and violence evolved into the complex structure of the Mafia family or casca. These families were not just criminal gangs. They were quasi-feudal states, each controlling its own territory, its mandamento. At the head of the family was the capofamiglia or Don, the patriarch. Beneath him were the sottocapo, underboss, and the consigliere, advisor. The family was divided into crews, each led by a capo regime or capo. And at the bottom were the soldiers, the soldatith men who did the work. They were all bound by a strict, unwritten, and sacred code of conduct. At the very heart of this code is omerta's sacred oath of silence. To a mafioso, omerta is more than just a rule against snitching. It is a way of life, a moral and spiritual imperative. It means a complete and total refusal to cooperate with state authorities. You do not go to the police. You do not testify in court. You do not speak of the family's business to anyone, not your wife, not your children, not your priest ever. To break omerta is to become an infame and infamous one, a traitor. And the penalty for such a betrayal is absolute and certain: death. A man is not born into Cosa Nostra. He is made. The initiation ceremony is a solemn and powerful ritual. A piece of theater designed to bind the new member to the family for life, with a bond considered stronger than blood. The prospective member, or picciato, after a long period of observation, is brought into a secluded room with the Don and other high-ranking members. The Don explains the rules of the honored society. Then the ceremony begins. The initiate's trigger finger is pricked with a needle. A drop of his blood is smeared onto a small, holy image, usually of a saint, often the Annunziata. The image is set on fire and placed in his cupped hands. As the image burns to ash, he swears a sacred oath of loyalty, shifting the burning paper from hand to hand to endure the pain, and declaring, "May my soul burn like the saint if I ever betray the secrets of Cosa Nostra." He is now a man of honor, a made man. He has been reborn into a new family. The Mafia's influence grew dramatically in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as a great wave of Sicilian immigration began. Hundreds of thousands of poor Sicilians, fleeing poverty and persecution, crossed the Atlantic to the United States. They brought with them their traditions, their food, their faith, and their secret societies. In the crowded, bustling tenements of New York's Little Italy, in Chicago, in New Orleans, Cosa Nostra found fertile new ground. The American Mafia's golden age was the era of Prohibition. From 1920 to 1933, the nationwide ban on alcohol created a black market of unimaginable profitability. The Mafia, with its existing networks and its comfort with violence, was perfectly positioned to dominate the bootlegging trade. Figures like Al Capone in Chicago and Charles "Lucky" Luciano in New York built vast, vertically integrated criminal empires, controlling everything from the smuggling of liquor to its distribution through thousands of secret speakeasies. The money and the violence were staggering. Lucky Luciano, a brilliant and ruthless visionary, was instrumental in shaping the modern American Mafia. After a bloody war between rival factions in New York, known as the Castellamarese War, Luciano abolished the old position of capo di tutti I capi, the boss of all bosses. He believed that one man holding absolute power was a recipe for constant conflict. Instead, in 1931, he established the Commission, a national governing body for the American Mafia, composed of the heads of the most powerful families, primarily the 5 families of New York. The Commission acted as a board of directors for organized crime, settling inter-family disputes, approving new members, dividing territories, and, most importantly, sanctioning high-level murders. It brought a corporate structure and a new era of stability to the American underworld. For decades, the Mafia's existence in America was an open secret. They controlled labor unions, infiltrated legitimate businesses, and held sway over politicians. Yet, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, under its long-serving and powerful director J. Edgar Hoover, officially denied the existence of a national crime syndicate for years, famously focusing the Bureau's resources on the threat of communism instead. But in 1957, the secret was blown wide open in the small, rural town of Appalachian, New York. A local state trooper, noticing an unusual number of luxury cars with out-of-state plates converging on the home of a known mobster, Joseph Barbara, became suspicious. He set up a roadblock. What he had stumbled upon was a massive national meeting of the Commission, attended by nearly 60 of the most powerful mafia bosses from across the country. When the police moved in, the panicked bosses, dressed in expensive suits, were seen fleeing through the woods and fields. The image was humiliating and undeniable. The Appalachian meeting shattered the myth of the Mafia's invisibility and forced Hoover and the FBI to finally acknowledge their existence. The real turning point, however, came in the 1960s, with the testimony of a made man named Joe Valachi. Facing a life sentence for murder and fearing he was marked for death by his own boss, Vito Genovese, Valachi became the first member of Cosa Nostra to publicly and comprehensively break the code of omerta. In nationally televised hearings before a Senate committee in 1963, Valachi laid bare the inner workings of the organization. He gave the authorities its secret name Cosa Nostra. He detailed its structure, its initiation rituals, its rules, and its history. He gave the government a language to understand and a framework to prosecute the mob. The code of silence was broken. In Italy, the state's war against the Sicilian Mafia intensified dramatically in the 1980s and 90s. Led by two courageous and determined Sicilian magistrates, Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, they understood that the only way to break the mafia was from the inside. They perfected the strategy of convincing high-ranking members to become state's witnesses, or pentiti. Their greatest success was convincing Tommaso Buscetta, a powerful boss who had fled to Brazil, to cooperate. Buscetta's testimony was a bombshell. He meticulously detailed the structure and workings of the Sicilian Mafia Commission, or cupola, confirming it was a single, unified organization and not just a collection of disparate gangs. His evidence led to the Maxi trial, which began in 1986 in a specially constructed, bomb-proof bunker courtroom in Palermo. It was the largest anti-mafia trial in history, with 475 defendants. After nearly 2 years, the verdicts were read. 338 were convicted, receiving sentences totaling 2,665 years. It was a staggering blow to Cosa Nostra, but the mafia retaliated with unimaginable brutality. In May of 1992, a half-ton of explosives placed under a highway outside Palermo was detonated as Giovanni Falcone's motorcade passed over. The blast killed Falcone, his wife, and 3 police escorts. The nation was in shock. Just 57 days later, another car bomb in Palermo killed Paolo Borsellino and 5 of his police guards. The mafia had declared all-out war on the Italian state. But their brutality backfired. The assassination sparked a massive public outcry and galvanized the state's resolve. The government sent the army into Sicily, and a new wave of crackdowns and arrests followed. More and more high-level bosses, disgusted by the war against women and children, became pentiti. The boss of all bosses, Salvatore Totorina, the man who ordered the assassinations, was captured in 1993. Today, the Sicilian Mafia is a shadow of its former self, profoundly weakened by decades of state pressure, internal divisions, and the testimony of those who dared to break the code of silence. But it has not disappeared. It has adapted, moving into more sophisticated, less visible forms of crime like international drug trafficking, money laundering, and infiltrating legitimate businesses by manipulating public contracts. Cosa Nostra is more than just a criminal enterprise. It is a culture, a state of mind, a counterstate that has existed for centuries. It is a world built on a dark and compelling paradox, a deep and twisted sense of honor that coexists with brutal violence, a sacred devotion to family that justifies murder, and a code of silence that has, for generations, been both its greatest strength and its ultimate vulnerability. It is a secret that has been whispered for centuries, from the sun-drenched hills of Corleone to the dark alleyways of New York, a story of power, betrayal, and a thing of their own. From the honor-bound clans of Sicily, our journey now takes us to the other side of the world, to an even older, more sprawling, and more enigmatic network of secret societies. A brotherhood that began with rebellious monks and now stretches across the globe, the Chinese Triads. From the honor-bound clans of Sicily, our journey now takes us to the other side of the world, into the heart of a civilization thousands of years old. Here, we find an even older, more sprawling, and more enigmatic network of secret societies. They are not a single organization, but a vast, decentralized fraternity of brotherhoods. Their symbols are mystical, their initiation rites are steeped in ancient history, and their story is a long, bloody tapestry of revolution, crime, and survival. They are the Triads. The term triad was not a name they chose for themselves. It was a label coined by the British authorities in colonial Hong Kong in the 19th century. It referred to the triangular symbol often used by these secret societies, a symbol representing the powerful trinity of heaven, earth, and man. To their own members, they were known by other, more poetic and patriotic names, such as the Tiandahuth Heaven and Earth Society, or the Hung Mun, the Vast Family. The story of the Triads begins, like so many great legends, not in crime, but in an act of rebellion. Their origins are traced back to the 17th century, to the tumultuous period following the Manchu conquest of China. In 1644, the native Han Chinese Ming dynasty fell, and the foreign Manchu invaders established the Qing dynasty. This was a time of great upheaval and resentment among the Han population. Out of this turmoil, the foundational myth of the Triads was born. The legend tells of the Shaolin Monastery, whose warrior monks, famed for their martial arts, aided the Qing emperor in subduing a rebellion. But the emperor, fearing their incredible power and loyalty to the old ways, betrayed them. He ordered his armies to surround the monastery and burn it to the ground. Thousands of monks perished in the flames. Only a handful traditionally said to be 5 escaped the massacre. These 5 warrior monks, known as the 5 ancestors, wandered through China, vowing revenge against the treacherous Qing emperor. They founded a secret society with one sacred, overarching goal: Fan Qing Fu Ming, overthrow the Qing and restore the Ming. This was the Hongmen, the Heaven and Earth Society. It was, at its heart, a patriotic nationalist resistance movement. It spread like a secret fire throughout southern China, recruiting peasants, merchants, scholars, and soldiers who opposed the foreign Manchu rule. They developed a complex system of secret codes, hand signals, and elaborate, theatrical rituals to identify each other, and to protect themselves from the ever-watchful eyes of government spies. The initiation ceremony was, and in some form still is, a deeply symbolic and powerful event, a piece of ritual theater designed to bind the new recruit to the brotherhood for life. The recruit, known as a new horse, is led through a series of gates, often constructed from swords, representing the different stages of his journey into the society. He must crawl under an arch of swords and walk across a bridge of swords. He is tested on his knowledge of the society's secret language and history. The climax of the ceremony is the blood oath. The recruit pricks his finger and lets a drop of his blood fall into a bowl of wine. Other members do the same. This blood-wine mixture is then shared by all, a symbol of their new, unbreakable kinship. The recruit then recites the 36 sacred oaths of the Hongmen. These oaths are a complex mixture of loyalty, morality, and pragmatism. The new member swears absolute loyalty to his brothers, promising to treat their parents as his own, to come to their aid in any fight, and most importantly, never to betray the society's secrets, upon penalty of death by a myriad of swords. He is no longer just a man. He is a member of a new, secret family, with a new and binding set of loyalties. For 2 centuries, the Triads operated as a powerful underground force. They were part political resistance, part social welfare network for the poor, and part criminal enterprise. They controlled trade routes, protected communities from bandits, and frequently instigated rebellions against the Qing dynasty. They played significant roles in major historical events, including the Taiping Rebellion and the Boxer Rebellion in the 19th century. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the revolutionary leader and first president of the Republic of China, was himself a Triad member and received significant funding and support from Triad groups in his efforts to overthrow the Qing. But as the Qing dynasty weakened and finally collapsed in 1912, the Triads' original unifying political purpose began to fade. With no Ming dynasty to restore, the brotherhoods began to evolve. They splintered, and their focus shifted from patriotic rebellion to pure criminal enterprise. With the massive waves of Chinese emigration in the 19th and 20th centuries, fleeing poverty and turmoil at home, the Triads spread across the globe. They established themselves in the burgeoning Chinatowns of Southeast Asia, in cities like Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, and across the Pacific in San Francisco, Vancouver, and New York. They became involved in every conceivable form of organized crime, controlling the opium trade, human smuggling, illegal gambling, prostitution, loan sharking, and extortion. In cities like Hong Kong, their influence became pervasive. They infiltrated every level of society, from the dockworkers and construction unions to the police force and, famously, the booming Hong Kong film industry of the 1970s and 80s, where they were known to extort money from film studios and coerce actors into appearing in their productions. Unlike the centralized pyramidal structure of the Sicilian Mafia's commission, the Triads are a loose, sprawling confederation of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of independent societies or gangs. Each has its own leader, its own territory, and its own criminal specialties. Famous Triad groups include the Sun Yi'an, one of the largest and most powerful in Hong Kong, the 14K Triad, founded by a former Kuomintang general, and the Wuxinghua. While they share a common history and ritual tradition, they are often fierce rivals, competing, sometimes violently, for territory and profit. The structure within a single Triad lodge, however, is highly organized and steeped in numerology. At the top is the Dragonhead, or Shanchu, the overall boss. Beneath him are various officials with evocative, coded titles based on numbers. For example, the 426 is the military commander or Red Pole, responsible for enforcement, defense, and leading the gang's fighters. The 415 is the White Paper Fan, the strategic advisor and financial expert, responsible for planning and administration. The 438 is the Grass Sandal, the liaison or messenger who facilitates communication between different gangs. The number, for itself, is central to Triad numerology, representing the ancient belief that the world was surrounded by 4 oceans. A rank-and-file member, an initiated soldier, is known as a 49. This is because 4 multiplied by 9 equals 36, the number of sacred oaths he swore upon his initiation. This complex system of numbers and symbols serves as a secret language, a way of maintaining identity and tradition in a clandestine world. In the modern era, the Triads have adapted with terrifying efficiency. They have embraced globalization, moving into sophisticated white-collar crimes like credit card fraud, intellectual property theft, and cybercrime. They have forged strategic alliances with other international criminal groups, from the Italian 'Ndrangheta to South American drug cartels, creating a truly global network of illicit trade. The handover of Hong Kong from Britain to China in 1997 was a major turning point. Many observers predicted a massive crackdown by the communist government in Beijing, which had long viewed the Triads as a threat. Instead, a complex, pragmatic, and often murky relationship developed. Some Triad groups have, it is alleged, been co-opted by the Chinese state, used as an unofficial, deniable tool to maintain order or to intimidate pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, Macau, and abroad. The line between patriot and gangster, once again, has become profoundly blurred. Today, the Triads remain one of the most powerful, resilient, and far-reaching criminal networks on Earth. They are a testament to the power of a shared identity, a secret history, and a code of brotherhood that has survived for over 300 years, through the fall of empires, the rise of communism, and the dawn of the digital age. They began as a whisper of rebellion against a foreign emperor, and they have become a global echo, a complex and enduring story of how a secret society, born from a desire for justice, can evolve into a formidable empire of crime. And so, our journey through the shadowy world of criminal secret societies comes to its conclusion. We have walked with the outlaw samurai of Japan, sat with the men of honor in Sicily, and navigated the sprawling ancient networks of the Chinese Triads. We have witnessed their solemn rituals, deciphered their secret codes, and traced their bloody histories from feudal origins to global enterprises. Though separated by vast oceans and distinct cultures, these three brotherhoods share a common, powerful thread. They were all born in the margins of society, forged in the fires of oppression, injustice, or a profound vacuum of power. They did not begin as mere criminal gangs. They began as alternative societies, with their own laws, their own sense of honor, and their own fiercely guarded families. First, we drifted into the world of the Yakuza, the inheritors of the samurai spirit. We saw how their identity was born from the disenfranchised, the masterless Ronin, the outcast Takiya and Bakudo. They embraced the label of good for nothing, and turned it into a badge of honor. Their world is one of rigid hierarchy, of the sacred Oyabun-Koban relationship, a bond meant to be stronger than blood. We witnessed the solemn Sakazuka-Goto sake-sharing ceremony, the grim atonement of Yubitsum, and the living tapestry of the Irizumi tattoo, a story of endurance and defiance worn permanently on the skin. We saw them as both predator and protector, a complex force of chivalrous crime that has, for centuries, been a deeply ingrained, if now fading, part of the Japanese landscape. Then, our journey took us to the sun-drenched, blood-soaked soil of Sicily, the birthplace of Cosa Nostra. Here, we found a society born from a deep and warranted suspicion of the state. The Mafia grew from the Gabalotti, the strongmen who became the only form of justice and order in a land abandoned by its rulers. We felt the weight of Omerta, the sacred and absolute code of silence, the foundation upon which their entire world is built. We witnessed the fiery initiation rite, where a man's blood is bound to a burning saint as he swears allegiance to a new family. We followed their path to America, where figures like Lucky Luciano transformed them into a corporate entity with the commission, and we stood by as courageous magistrates like Falcone and Borsellino, along with brave pentiti like Tommaso Buscetta, risked everything to break that silence and bring the honored society to its knees. And finally, we navigated the ancient and intricate networks of the Chinese Triads. We learned of their mythic origins in the ashes of the Shaolin Monastery. As a patriotic movement, the Hongmen dedicated to overthrowing the foreign Qing dynasty. We saw how their political purpose evolved into a global criminal enterprise as they spread with the Chinese diaspora. We decoded their mystical numerology, where a 426 is a fighter and a 49 is an initiated brother, bound by 36 sacred oaths. We saw a decentralized, fluid, and adaptable network that has survived for over 300 years, through the fall of empires, the rise of communism, and the dawn of the digital age, blurring the line between patriot and criminal, rebel and racketeer. So, what do these three powerful and often brutal societies tell us? They show us that the desire for brotherhood, for identity, for a code to live by, is one of the most powerful human impulses. When the state fails to provide justice, when society pushes people to the margins, new forms of order will inevitably arise to fill the void. These societies created their own laws, their own sense of honor, their own families. They are a dark mirror, reflecting the societies they operate within. The Yakuza reflect the rigid, hierarchical, and honor-bound nature of feudal Japan. The Sicilian Mafia reflects a culture of deep family loyalty, and a profound distrust of centralized authority. The Triads reflect the long, complex history of Chinese secret societies, blending political rebellion with pragmatic survival. Their stories are a testament to the power of ritual and the strength of a shared, secret identity. The oaths, the tattoos, the blood covenants, these are not empty gestures. They are powerful psychological tools that bind individuals to a collective, transforming them from ordinary men into members of something larger, something that promises protection, purpose, and a form of immortality. But they are also cautionary tales. They show us how easily a pursuit of honor can justify violence, how loyalty can demand cruelty, and how a family can become a prison. The very codes that give them strength are also the source of their greatest tragedies. They are a part of the vast, intricate, and often invisible architecture of our world, a shadow history that runs parallel to our own. Their stories are a reminder that the line between patriot and criminal, between protector and predator, is sometimes as thin and as sharp as a razor's edge. Thank you for joining me on this voyage with Driftwood Histories. If these stories have stirred your curiosity and soothed your mind, I invite you to subscribe and join our community of fellow travelers. There are many more hidden currents of time, many more shadow worlds, for us to explore together. Until then, sleep well. May your own codes be those of kindness. May your own loyalties be those of compassion. And may your dreams be peaceful. Good night.